Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week I'm going to finish off the downdraft table. See you in a minute. Just going to make a start now on the downdraft table, which goes on the chop saw bench. The chop saw bench itself is set down 80mm below the normal work levels, and that's because the actual table on the chop saw is 80mm above its base. So it'll mean that the whole, if you put the chop saw down on its table, it'll line through with all the other benches, so you can use them as effectively as a support or an outfeed table type arrangement. So this has got to be 80mm overall, and I've found that the bits of timber I bought from the Worcester Recycling Exchange, which I think might be tulip wood, I'm not sure, it's quite it's harder than I thought it was. It's stuff that's come from a kitchen supplier. They make kitchen doors out of it. And I've used some of the rebated bits of that. I'm going to sink the table down into that rebate. I've got to cut one of the pieces of timber off that one to make a rebate in it. But that will form the basic frame of it. It's cut out in the corners because the aluminium cart is going up through there. You'll see closer when the whole thing gets put together. And then you put the top on, and basically there'll be some tapering down sections of plywood, all feeding into one, probably in the back outlet hole, and you connect a vacuum up to that, and that will suck any debris down into that level. The sides were glued on one edge. I've used the Gorilla white glue on these, which seems to work well enough. And then I screwed the base into the sides. I used a very small screw, really more to locate it than anything. One of the things I'm thinking that I might get when I get the air run into the small shed is to get a small pin gun to help fix this sort of thing together, because the screws aren't really doing a lot structurally. They're there more than anything to locate the pieces and hold the two parts together. And it's sometimes neater just to have a very small pin that you can fill and sand. So we'll probably have a look at that as a next improvement in the shed, to get some air in. Once that was all wiped and cleaned up with the bottom put on, that gave me the basic tray shape that I needed. Now I've taken the downdraft table a little bit further on. I've put a sloping bottom in there to help pull the airflow down towards the outlet, and I've just cut two pieces of ply that will be fitted in either side. Just got to notch that out a bit there, and that will draw, as I say, hopefully pull the air down towards the outlet. Now it was at this point that I had to have a fairly rapid design change, because I'd changed the hood design for the miter saw cart. It meant that the redesigned sides wouldn't allow the box to sit on it, so I took the box along to Menin Sheds and cut the side out at the back and remade the sections of side panel so that they set back into the box slightly more, to allow the dust cowl on the miter station to fit. You'll see later on what I mean about it, but it meant cutting out the back half of the box, resetting the sides further inboard, and cutting down the plywood top. It's not a major job, but it's pretty awkward when you've got something that's finished or nearly finished, to start hacking it about, but fortunately they've got a big bandsaw down there that helped me cut the pieces out without too much disruption. That was then all glued up, refixed, ready for use on the revised layout. A little bit of fiddling around with the end pieces to make sure there was a lip for the top to sit into. I just screwed them on from underneath, cleaned up the glue and sealed up all the odd bits that were left. And then I took it back to the small shed just to force a bit out the hole for the vacuum cleaner. I'd got a 40mm Forstner bit arrived I've been waiting for a week or two, and just drill that out ready for the plastic piece of pipe that I've previously formed, just to slide that in. That seemed to fit in quite nicely. I've subsequently just slightly widened the hole out at the outside edge so that it countersunk in a little bit further, so there's very little protrusion now, and the dust extractor hose fits straight into it. Next then was to get the sloping parts redesigned and fitted, just glued in loosely with a little bit of support underneath, and just ran glue around the edges and waited till it went off. Right now I've put the sloping panels in and glued them so that everything now goes towards the outlet. I've fitted the 40mm outlet so that I can just plug the hose in and we're away. All I need to do now before I seal this up is to actually seal all the joints. There's a lot of gaps here that just need a little bit of sealant around them so that that forms the bottom of what will hopefully be an airtight chamber for anything other than air coming through the holes. Quick coat of decorator's cork, squirt or two of water, just tidied it all up. I was going to varnish the inside as well, but on balance I've decided that if it's going to get dust in there that will gather, I might as well just tip it on its end and tap it, and it'll all fall down to the bottom anyway. I think it's something I'll see in use as to whether or not there's a major problem with it. If so, the top is going to be made removable so that it's not a fixture that I can't get back inside to work on once we've got it running. I had some double-sided stuck foam rubber strip that I was using on the shed when I butted the panels together to seal the joints, and there was some of that left over. I've left the strip on one side of it that you normally would remove to reveal the double-sided, the other side stick, if you see what I mean. But I left that on so that it will just sit the table on top and compress down, but I'll be able to take it off again. If I'd peeled that red film off, it would have stuck the top down and it would have been very difficult to get that off. Just marked out some holes, drilled them with a small drill and countersink, and then just screwed the top down, which, as I say, can be removed at any time for maintenance. Quick light sand with it plugged in just to see if it worked and to tidy the top up. So that's the whole of the downdraft table finished. That slides into the lighter station table, brings it up level with all the other units if I want to. It means I can now put the cowl over the top if I want to as well. That will help with the dust extraction. And we plug the vacuum in the side, and it's then ready to use. Seems to be pulling the most of the dust down anyway into it. There's quite a lot down in there already, so I know it's pulling in. So I think that's working okay. We'll see how it goes in time. I can have a look with the dust meter I've got above it, so that'll give me a rough indicator as well as to how well it's performing. So I hope that was of interest. I look forward to seeing you next week when we'll make something else. See you. Bye.